You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
In a world where film studios have pillaged every young adult novel, DC'd every comic book series, and Frankenstein every silver screen monster in search of the next movie mega franchise. Two nerds, two movies, one cinematic universe.
This is Matt.
And this is Randy.
And we watched two movies.
And we are joined here today by a guest, Jerry the Gnome.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Doing well. What's going on, Jerry?
Not much, I just doing my normal thing, protecting houses, fighting off bad guys, Jabberwockies and such. The normal stuff in troll hunting. Good looking guy with a big beard, big pointy hat, we normally do.
As a gnome tends to sport. Big
totally.
Hat, beard. Well, okay, so people don't think they're going crazy. Yes, that is a mythical creature we have on as a guest, but also we have a guest co-host this episode with Matt. What's going on, Matt?
Not much. I'm having a pretty good time. I had a heck of a time trying to get our good friend Jerry over here. He, he's always popping about. He's got that weird, crazy power where you can, break harp strings and wind up in other people.
Man, don't be talking about that string theory.
All right.
String theory.
Sorry, Jerry.
So that's how string theory works.
Yeah, who would have thought?
I told you, stop talking about it. Look, you take a harp, you play the harp, it teleports you.
Oh, shoot. Now my daddy's going to be mad. I wasn't supposed to say anything about that. It's okay, Jerry. Just take it easy, buddy.
First, the reason we have Jerry here today is because one of the two movies we're covering on this episode, this very space-tastic episode, is Leprechaun 4 in Space. And Jerry's got opinions on leprechauns. So
yes, I do. I promised that I would keep it clean, but I have to say it's great that you guys finally decided to cover one horror movie and one documentary. I mean, come on. Everybody knows leprechauns are evil.
Jerry, how many times I got to tell you it's not a documentary?
No, don't. I know it's a documentary.
All right, look.
All right. We'll save the argument for later.
Okay.
It's really a documentary.
Well, so other than the well-known documentary Leprechaun 4 in Space, we will also be discussing Jason X. That's right. We did it. The Slasher Trash in Space episode. That's what it shall be known as.
Space, where no one can hear you.
Applause, because no one's clapping for these movies. Yeah, so anyway, we're going to talk about Leprechaun 4 in Space. It's very important. It's not Leprechaun in Space. It's Leprechaun 4 in Space and Jason X. But before we do, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself. You also talk on audio files that go out on the internet, a.k.a. podcasts.
Yes, I do. When I'm not wrangling gnomes and mythical creatures, I have my own podcast, one with my kids called Comics with My Kids. It's a clean show because we cover comic books that my son or my daughter are currently reading. And you can actually find that podcast on the EMC network, which is the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. My other show, which is more for the mature audience, not like, hey, kind of mature, but, regular, average, everyday person.
I wonder how well that's going to come across in audio form. There was hand motions with that too, audience. If you don't know what he did, then it doesn't matter.
So what was it? Oh, yes. So I have the other podcast, which is the 60s Reboot Podcast. And the premise of that show is that it takes a look at 1960s television shows and it puts the listener in the shoes of a movie or television producer. And me and a co-host will recast a classic television series and then kind of talk about it a little bit and then come up with our own modern day take for said 1960s television show. And as this recording drops, the newest episode with, oddly enough, the co-host for this show is going to be on my show. And that's going to hit the airwaves.
That's where Jasper went. You stole him.
I totally.
That's very suspicious. No Jasper on this show where he should be. And then suddenly there's a 60s Reboot podcast episode with Jasper on it. Huh. Maybe I should...
I can't say... I can't say whether or not he met a gnome.
Hey, I had nothing to do with that. I did not touch that man.
I would hope so. I would hope not.
Yes, so if you want to hear Jasper, come check out the 60s Reboot podcast at emcpod.net/60s Reboot. Only on the EMC Podcast Network.
Yeah, you can find that and more at electronicmediacollective.com. For some reason, I feel like I should also promote this thing. Okay, yeah, no, awesome. Dude, 60s Reboot it's fun. I've been on 2 episodes, and if I'm ever on it again, maybe we'll find a show that isn't about magical women. But what's the fun in that?
What's wrong with magical women?
It's the only thing I want. That's nice. The only thing, right? Jerry should be a big fan of magical women. Matt, what should we start with first? We got Jason X and Lep 4.
Let's say, how about since Leprechaun was the first one to break the gravitational pull of Earth, let's start with that one.
All right, Leprechaun 4 in space.
Space.
Yes, that's what. Yeah, hey, thank you. 1996. Overview on a planet in a distant galaxy, far, far away. It doesn't say that. A power-hungry leprechaun holds a beautiful princess hostage in order to marry her for her royal title. With her title and his beloved gold, he'll be able to rule the universe while making his maniacal plans. What he doesn't count on is an invading platoon of Marines from Earth in space. To save the princess and foil his plans. An accomplished trickster, the leprechaun stows himself away on the orbiting spaceship. I mean, I guess he does. Man, there's so many questions about this. Anyway, and wreaks havoc on the crew in an attempt to recapture his bride. This was written by Dennis A. Pratt, directed by Brian Trenchard Smith. Brian Trenchard Smith. Based on characters by Mike Jones. Let's see. Starring. Listen, there's some people, but here's the main one. You got Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun. So, and there's other people that soap opera stars and stuff.
Hey, don't forget about Debbie Dunning. She was from Home Improvement, man.
What? Really?
Yeah, Debbie Dunning. She was the Toolman's announcer.
You're right. Oh, wow. Okay. I did forget all about that. Good call. So, Leprechaun 4 in space. First, let's go ahead and start like we always do. Matt and or Jerry, had you heard of this before? Had you seen this? What did you know going in? What are your initial impressions?
Well, Jerry, if you don't mind, I'll handle this one to start off with.
Yeah, all right, fine. All right, go ahead.
All right, so I had heard about this, and I think I saw this back in '97, and probably saw about 15 minutes of it before I turned it off because it was campy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's certain times in movies where you got to suspend belief, and I couldn't suspend my belief when I was first watching it. But when you decided that you wanted to do a podcast about a space opera, then I said, well, I'll get Jerry and I'll sit my way through this and see what I can do about enjoying it.
Well, I heard about it. In fact, I knew about it because it's a documentary. I know I said it earlier, and I'm going to stick to my guns. It's a documentary about the evils of leprechauns. Now, leprechauns are not only here on Earth, but they're across the entire universe. Out in space. That guy, what's his name, Treckard, or Mike Jones, or whoever produced this movie, he did a smart thing. He got Marines on a ship and flew them into space, where he was able to record the destruction of a leprechaun.
Jerry, it's fictional.
No, it can't be.
So Jerry, is this like are you saying this is like an actual documentary? We're watching real footage of Leprechaun's exploits, or is this like a dramatic what do they call it? Dramatic reenactment?
I don't know. I didn't see the very beginning where they normally say the events are inspired by actual things. So I'm under the impression that they got a real spaceship and they got a real bunch of Marines.
They looked real. Like,
and
oh yeah,
flew them into space.
Okay.
All right, Jerry, this is where I have to remind you that most movies, when they don't start off with this was inspired by actual events, is that it's fictional movie. Next thing you're going to tell me is that, unicorns are real.
Of course they're real, man. Did you see me ride one in?
Let's just talk about the movie.
Jerry, have you ever seen the Unicorn Store?
Yeah.
That would support your theory, actually.
Yeah. Yep. See, right there.
Yeah.
That was a real unicorn and a real Brie Larson.
a real Brie Larson. So, Jerry, did you enjoy this movie documentary?
Yes, I totally enjoyed it because the good guys win. The leprechaun is destroyed, and oh man, I totally spoiled the end of the movie.
Arguably, though, I mean, the leprechaun was just kind of doing his own thing, going about his business, and the Marines, the Space Marines, they're the ones that kind of rolled in and started some trouble and stole his would be his fiance and his gold.
Yeah, but if you look, she was clearly kidnapped, and those Marines were definitely there to rescue her.
Jerry, you might have a point there, but Randall has actually a better point. The leprechaun was just minding his own business. He was dealing a transaction with a royal member of a family, albeit he did it in nefarious means. But I mean, it's no different.
Yeah, how
a business transaction.
How he was going about his initial transaction wasn't necessarily the on the level, but so I had never seen this before. That conversation we just had really kind of makes me want to get into the plot a little bit of this. But first, I had never seen this before. Obviously, I had heard of it. It's Leprechaun in Space. I know I've seen the earlier ones, maybe the first one or second one. I can't think of which. I'm not sure which one all the way through. And I had seen Leprechaun in the Hood. But I'd never seen this one. I didn't really have a desire to. And it's going to be hard not to compare this a little bit to Jason X because they're so similar in ways. But both of these movies, Leprechaun 4 and Jason X, start off and I'm like, oh God, these feel like made for Sci-Fi Channel movies from like 15 years ago when that was really like bottom of the barrel stuff. The difference between this and Jason X is Jason X, eventually, you kind of start to like see where the money went. This one just feels like that the whole movie. It doesn't even feel like a made-for sci-fi movie. It feels like a cheap sci-fi TV show that nobody really put a lot of investment in. They're just like, whatever's going to run at 3 a.m, it doesn't matter. It felt more like a TV show than a movie to me.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there because, I mean, I think they spent all their money to pay Warwick Davis for being in the movie and maybe the makeup for the Leprechaun because it was such a low budget. Yeah, I mean, half the set pieces I could recognize from the Dollar Tree, where everything is literally $1. I mean, I don't want to delve too much into the plot just yet, but there is a scene where they're in a bar and all the bar glasses, I kid you not, are plastic glasses from the Dollar Tree. I've seen those exact glasses.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I'm like, so they have these, they're just like, obviously, it's not even glass. They're obviously plastic, swirly, neon colored, like see-through cups. And I'm like, those are supposed to be future cups, huh? Like they're supposed to be futuristic club cups. No, that's not working. Yeah, it is pretty low budget. And speaking of like, so all the money must have, I mean, it's still, they're doing a space thing. I get it. Like that's going to be expensive, but yeah, I don't I don't know how much. Here, I'll tell you, actually. I won't tell you. There's no information on the budget. Never mind.
You just uncovered it. That's what the movie was for. It was to hide. It was for embezzling money.
It was like a Russian money laundering deal. It was 96. Steam wasn't around. They couldn't launder it through like crap indie games. So
or mattress stores.
Oh yeah. I mean, if all the money went to Warwick Davis and the Leprechaun makeup, in my opinion, they put the money in the wrong place, because that was my least favorite thing about this movie, I think. This was tough, man. Like, I mean, it wasn't that hard to sit through, but it's not good. It's not good at all. There are a few glimmers of something where I'm like, this could almost work. Like, at first, like, it just drops you into Space Marines. At first I was like, oh, the lieutenant or sergeant or whatever, like, he's got this metal plate on his head. I was like, oh, that makeup's actually pretty good. And then he turns his head and you can see where it's obviously like the fake skin and plate are like pushing his ear down, and it's so like, it's obviously, they didn't even, oh, it's so bad. And I'm like, oh, nope, never mind. So it drops us in immediately with that. They're going to some planet. That's all we know. And it's super typical, like, Army Space Marine movie, typical Space Marine movie. You know, all the Space Marine movies.
Like Aliens.
I guess, right? But it is like the typical, like, Army rah-rah. You got the drill sergeant style guy shouting orders and all this. But they're going to go to some planet. We don't really know what. But then it's also intercut with the Leprechaun just chilling with this princess who was locked up, and like basically trying to, he is forcing her into this arrangement, but he does kind of bribe her into this arrangement to like agree to marry him because he's got all this gold and stuff. And at first I'm like, it's so, you've got Space Marines, and then all of a sudden it's so jarring to jump into, like, you're in this random cave with like magical creatures. You got the Leprechaun and this princess lady who's just kind of like this chick with glitter makeup. But I'm like, so it's so weird to have this fantasy stuff. But then I was like, wait, but that's what it is. It's just fantasy stuff. They're just mixing these fantasy mystical creatures with space sci-fi. And I started to get a little bit on board because I was like, why not? Because you can't go into it thinking it's a horror movie. And that was
No, you can't. It's not a horror movie. It's a documentary.
You can't go into it thinking it's a horror documentary, because that was my initial mistake. And when it switched over to the Leprechaun stuff, I'm like, oh, this is so bad. But I'm like, wait, why not? That's wacky. And I'll maintain through the whole thing. It's not horror at all. It goes for comedy. Comedy, sci-fi, fantasy. I think it fails, but if you look at it from that angle, it's easier to get on board with.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it's definitely a mix of the three.
It's hard to even say we'll get to this later, but it's become a tradition on Grawlix Cinematic Universe is if we're doing a slasher movie, I'll have your kill counts later, and we can talk about maybe our favorite kill or whatever. But when thinking about this movie, I'm like, but is this even a slasher movie? I mean, I guess it's got that structure, but this does not feel like Jason X. At least still feels like a slasher movie. This does not feel like a slasher movie.
You know, if I had to put it with a particular monster slasher kind of movie, I would make this fall into like that mythical Pumpkinhead and
like monster,
yeah. It's more monster and than slasher. I mean, come on, you got to wrap your mind around the fact that it's a leprechaun on another planet, not necessarily the same leprechaun that you've seen in 1 through 3. Obviously, that's like they drop you right in the.
I hadn't contemplated that at all, actually. I assumed it was the same Leprechaun just because it's Warwick Davis and stuff, but I guess it wouldn't have to be the same Leprechaun. I just assume it's like he's got a life outside of these movies. He's been, when he's not in the hood, he's romancing space princesses out in space because he's got magical powers and can do whatever he wants. But I hadn't contemplated that, maybe this is just a random leprechaun out there.
I mean, the movie opens up. They don't establish where he's at, how did he get to that planet, how he got the princess. I mean, you see the princess and then he just shows up. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm a leprechaun. Look at me. Hey, you do that pretty good. You sure you're not a leprechaun? No, Jerry.
You're going to make Jerry real nervous. He knows where you sleep, man. Don't make him think you're like a leprechaun double agent.
You're kind of tall for a leprechaun.
Well, you're kind of short for a gnome.
It should be noted, listener, that there's ancient lore that details why Jerry the gnome is at odds with leprechauns. They're like natural enemies.
And one day I will have my war journal as a podcast. I promise you that. It might be way in the future when I'm out in space and I'm fighting leprechauns out there who are making deals with royal family, and I have to go in there with some colonial marines and say, "Hey, hoorah!"
So this could almost be the Jerry story.
So go back to the main point I was making is that it is funny that it just kind of drops you right in the story, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't have like a way of establishing anything.
It is definitely off-putting right from the bat because it drops you right into the Marines section too, and like all you know is they're going to capture a creature on this planet. Was that the princess? Because the scientist obviously knew there was some creature that he wanted on this planet, but there apparently was no indication. It wasn't the leprechaun. And it seemed like it was the princess, I guess.
Yeah, because they never really establish it, and you think it's the princess.
Or at least that's who they take. And they blow up. I'm just baffled by the leprechaun because, okay, so he's got magical powers. So what you could have in terms of a leprechaun slasher movie, because his powers are not well defined, he's basically Bugs Bunny. He's basically a horror Bugs Bunny. Dude, later, because he can't die. Like, they kill, spoilers, they kill him at the end, but it's obviously established early on in this movie that he just can't die because they blow him up until some dude takes a pee on him and then he comes back. But he didn't necessarily come back because the dude took a pee on him, because they blow him up again later and he just reforms. And it's like, so he can't die. So what you could have with his weird mystical powers is like Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street style, like weird magic slasher deaths. But they don't really do that. But the reason I say he's like Bugs Bunny is because at one point they need to go into the waste facility or whatever, and they have to put suits on, otherwise there's flesh-eating bacteria. And when they get in there and they're trying to find this leprechaun, because it still is treating it like a horror slasher thing, where they know he's in there somehow, when you then see him in there, he's in his own little like biohazard suit. I'm like, what? Where did he get his own little biohazard suit? This is a cartoon, man. He's Bugs Bunny. Like, he doesn't need that.
Yeah, if he can regenerate, then why is he just walking around in with the flesh-eating bacteria?
And it looks just like theirs, but it fits him, obviously. It's so wacky. I'm sorry. I feel like I sidetracked something you were saying.
It's okay. This is a much better track to be on.
That was, I don't know. That was just something. Okay, so speaking of, now, that said, like, his one-liners are awful. You would think they'd have something to do with the person he's killing or the scenario. They don't. They don't have anything to do with, like, anything. They're just bad one-liners.
You're definitely not going to get, he's going to kill somebody with a surfboard and then say, "Surf's up."
I will say, though, there are a couple scenes where this movie almost really works for me. I hated everything with the leprechaun. For the most part, I hated everything with the Space Marines. The one stuff that I actually was kind of on board with, and there was one scene that actually got a chuckle out of me. I love the stuff with the scientist. I love the mad scientist stuff. I mean, it wasn't great. But when the mad scientist is revealed and he's there and he comes out and he's basically like an arm and a upper torso, an arm and a head stuck on this machine. I kind of loved all that stuff. Some of that I thought worked really well for me. There wasn't a whole lot to it. And they end up doing a very obvious, I mean, they direct reference The Fly. Towards the end, he's like, help me. Yeah. So they go completely mad scientist thing with him. But I kind of liked that stuff quite a bit. And it seemed like maybe that's when the screenwriters liked it too, because that's the only time the humor worked for me. The only time the humor worked for me. There's even a scene where like the sergeant or whatever, I'll call him the drill sergeant, even though they're not in boot camp. The drill sergeant Marine guy is basically like renegotiating their terms with him because they're Marines, but they're obviously also like soldiers for hire.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that. It seemed like they're like mercenaries,
like contracted mercenaries. But I guess maybe in the future that's what Marines are. So who knows?
Governments are now underfunded, so they lease out and contract out their military to mad scientists who have robots and everything.
The drill sergeant type guy is not a bonehead, but he's, what's the word? I don't know. He's just all testosterone and blah. But when it comes time to renegotiate their terms, at first they're like, well, how much you got to pay us to stick around, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, 100 times what we're paying you now. And then the drill sergeant instantly launches into like, and this is where it's kind of humorous, is because it's the way they go about it is totally like, it's how movie producers negotiate terms, where they're talking about points on the back end type situation. You know, I want this much percent and this much and this many points off the mineral rights. The mineral rights, when he said that, I was like, I see what you're doing here. At this point, and there go it's like a real quick back and forth between him and the scientist guy. This could work if there was more, I don't want to say it's clever, but fun humor in it like this. And then everything else in the movie, everything failed for me. Everything was bad.
Yeah, it did seem like they poured more of the writing into the mad scientist B-C plot. Yeah, probably the C plot. And you're a big you're a Doctor Who fan as well. Mm-hmm. But when they did that reveal, did that remind you of a particular episode of Doctor Who?
I've watched a lot of Doctor Who, so it reminds me of like three. I'm not sure which one you're going for, but it reminds me a little bit of lots of Davros.
Oh, yeah.
Who's like the guy that made the Daleks, just because he wheels around in a chair. But also, there's this little nasty green dude who wheels around in a chair in some of the older ones. And it reminds me of him a little bit. Yeah, like Jerry knows him.
The one that I was reminded of is the David Tennant Christmas special, Voyage of the Damned, in which you meet Max, the guy that owns the starship Titanic, and he comes out from behind a wall the exact same freaking way that this guy did. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, this was in 97. This Doctor Who episode was like in 2007, 2008, somewhere around there.
Probably, yeah, 10 years.
I'm like, somebody had to have seen Leprechaun 4 and went, that's an idea. I'm taking that.
Oh my God. I love and am horrified by the thought of Doctor Who writers being inspired by Leprechaun 4 in space. But I can totally see it. The Doctor Who comparison's not that far off. I could envision a Leprechaun in space story told through Doctor Who. Maybe not necessarily, not this Leprechaun, but I could see that being a thing. So maybe in a way that's why this, at least the concept, could work for me, because it's just one of those wacky, like, let's take let's take the space setting and mix in these weird elements. It's space with a mad scientist a la The Fly, but also with a leprechaun and space princess with mystical royalty, and it's everything. Mix it all together. Get a spider scientist arachnid creature at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it hits all the elements of a Doctor Who episode.
I totally agree. I mean, this is clearly a Doctor Who documentary, documentary about leprechauns and space operas, and I totally get it. 5 stars, man, right there. Make that a Doctor Who episode. Somebody get Chris Chibnall on the phone. I'm gonna go see him and talk to him about that.
5 stars from Jerry.
Totally, because this is a documentary drama horror
docudrama. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do the slasher rundown here.
All right, cool.
This is technically a slasher movie. So, we had a total of 8 kills for this movie, but 7 of those can be attributed to the Leprechaun.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
Out of those eight, are you counting the 3 times that the Leprechaun dies?
No.
Oh, man.
You know what? So if you want to count the Leprechaun once, it'd be 9 kills. But he does get killed like 3 times.
See, I told you, they are evil, manipulative creatures.
We don't always run down every kill, but these are all pretty short. And they're ridiculous. And it reminded me of something I wanted to mention earlier, but sidetracked myself. There's several scenes where the leprechaun... See, he's magical. He just has a gun at one point, or at multiple points. But there's several, like, shootouts against the Leprechaun. Like, the first time they encounter him, it's just a shootout, a gun shootout. Like, people hiding behind rocks and then, like, jumping out and shooting guns. Including the Leprechaun. Magical? I'm like, what? What? Okay, so the first kill, we have a soldier who was hacked to death with a lightsaber.
Nope. It was a light shillelagh. You don't want to get sued. It was a light shillelagh.
Well, yes, it was. That is appropriate. Of course, it glows green. Let's talk about Kowalski, because he's the one that the Leprechaun smuggles himself on board through Kowalski and his private bits, I guess, because the Leprechaun emerges from his crotch, and that's what kills Kowalski. You don't
evidently.
It's all under the pants. You don't see it happen until the Leprechaun's climbing out the fly, but it's weird. Like, what is this?
No, the best part is the reaction from the female Marine. I blame myself for killing him because he got a hard on.
Well, the drill sergeant type guy's like, that doesn't sound terrible. That'd be the best way to go. You went saluting or whatever like that. Yeah. And she's like, and then she looks at him like, oh, really? and the drill sergeant gets this like disgusted look like, what? Why does that turn you on? Mooch. Oh, okay. Mooch, his death made me laugh. So he gets the biohazard suit cut. He gets eaten by flesh-eating bacteria. Okay, this part's funny. If there was more of this, I'd have been on board with this movie more. But his buddy's running with him trying to get to the airlock to get out of this waste area. And the guy's like, I mean, he's not fine, but it's obviously the guy's in the suit running along with him. And then when they open the door, the lady looks at the one soldier, is like, are you guys okay? And the soldier goes, it's Mooch. And then looks, and the camera pans, and he's just straight up a skeleton in the suit already. There's no human to him. He's just a skeleton. And it's like, if they didn't do it for laughs, they stumbled across a pretty funny bit.
Someone in the prop department goes, hey, we have the skeleton. What can we do with the skeleton? I got it. We'll have a flesh-eating bacteria eat all the flesh off of them in one frame.
Dude, that's it. That's why it's so funny, because you expect... It hasn't hardly been any time. Like, you expect the camera's going to pan over and he's just like, maybe they'll do some gross like face makeup. Instead, it pans over and it's dollar store style skeleton prop sitting there. And it's like, what? Let's see. Dolores, Danny boy gets squished by a space crate. Dolores is the one that gets thrown. Why does her death have weight? It doesn't, but I mean, they tried to give it weight. She gets thrown off the catwalk. They actually go, she's one of the few, they go and find her afterwards, and she's not quite dead yet, and she's like, kill him, and then dies. And it's like, why did anybody actually care that much for that character? I assumed she got thrown off the catwalk. We don't have to see her again. Whatever. She must have been friends with somebody on set.
She was probably the second. She's Debbie Dunning. She's on Home Improvement. She was the second highest paid person on the set.
Oh,
they had to give her some kind of gravitas.
That's a good point. Harold. Oh God, this is where it goes full cartoon. Harold is like the mad scientist's sniveling assistant.
This is a Bugs Bunny death.
This is no lie. Like, not even. They went out of their way to make it cartoony because the leprechaun like mind throws a plate at him basically, and it hits him in the head and then falls down. And they've done this like cartoony where his head's like round and smashed flat, but it's still got a face, and he's like blah blah blah, and then he falls over. It's like, what? Okay. See, Bugs Bunny. You put Daffy Duck there, and it's a Looney Tunes cartoon. No, yeah, exactly. I mean, just picture that, but with bad horror movie makeup from the 90s. The sergeant, well, it turned out he was like android anyway, but he gets electrocuted to death. And that is the leprechaun's fault, but the leprechaun doesn't actually kill him. He puts like a whammy on him, turns him into a very conflicted cross-dresser, basically. It's very odd. That whole scene plays out so strange, but he keeps attacking our remaining survivors, so then they essentially electrocute him. The doctor, frozen in liquid nitrogen and gets blown up, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure they reuse a few frames of his explosion, which I thought looked pretty good for when the leprechaun explodes out in space, and I was like, that doesn't look good. It was pretty weird. Oh, okay, and then the leprechaun blown up in space. Wait, what about the princess? Did they save her?
I don't remember. I'm kind of drawing a blank on.
Did she just?
If she died or not?
What happened?
Oh, she got sucked into space. I thought, because wasn't she in the cargo bay when the doors opened?
Maybe. Okay, because I know we don't have the final. There is like a final girl in this, but it's not just the final girl. Kind of like our next movie. There's several survivors. The black guy, who I was like, all right, another one that didn't kill the black guy first off. Like, he actually survived. They fake you out with a death for him, and then it turns out, no, he's actually around, and he sticks around, and he's one of the survivors. I was like, all right, good. And then you get the final girl, and then final girl love interest.
He's kind of set up as the hero of the whole story.
You got hero, final girl, black guy tropes,
yeah.
And they all survive.
Yeah.
And when I say black guy tropes, I mean, that sounds terrible, but like in a lot of these, there's only one black guy. And, traditionally, a slasher movie, they don't last too long. But no, not in this case.
I'm just quoting Scream, but usually the black guy dies the first.
Exactly.
Was it Scream 1 or 2? Like right off the bat, the black guy died.
Well, that's kind of like, it's interesting because we talked about the first 3 Friday the 13ths earlier. Like, we kind of kicked off the season with those. And those defy that convention too. I don't think there were any black people in the first one. But
no, it was completely whitewashed.
I think the second one, there was a black guy who was there in like 2 or 3 scenes and then just disappears from the movie. So it's like, well, I guess he technically didn't die. He just wasn't around for filming. I don't know. And then the third one had one of the biker guys was a black guy who you thought got killed kind of early on and then shows up at the end to help. He ends up getting killed, but he shows up at the end in the bar and it's like, whoa, you did a tough dude. And then he gets killed right away. But he was like the last to die. So that's something, I guess. But anyway, no, that's like that's kind of the trope. But so far I've found maybe we've just hit the movies that defied the trope. What's your favorite of these kills? These ridiculous kills.
Probably my favorite is the lightsaber shillelagh.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because and going into it, I'm like, oh wow, they actually took some time and ripped off George Lucas, and so you see the leprechaun show up, he lights up the lightsaber, and then they cut away to the guy's face, and they're like, okay, well, we cut off his leg, and then they cut back to the leprechaun for like an eighth of a second. You see very little blood. You don't see a missing leg because evidently they didn't have the budget to have a guy like stand on one leg, and then they cut back to his face and he goes as though he gets hit again.
It's not done very well, no.
So it's like, okay, were they trying to make it suspenseful, like with Jaws, and not show the shark? Trying to make it suspenseful, like not showing his leg getting cut off.
I don't think this show is trying to do anything suspenseful like Jaws. I'm going to say the best looking one is the scientist because, I don't know, the makeup's bonkers. And then the liquid nitrogen and the explosion stuff, I thought that looked pretty good. Looked pretty cool. I was a little surprised by it. But my favorite kill is going to be the flesh-eating bacteria just because of that comedic moment to where the camera pans over and you're expecting to see like some guy all disfigured. Instead, you see just a bone-dry skeleton in a suit. You're like, what?
Space bacteria, man. It's fast acting.
God, but almost an hour on Leprechaun 4?
You said it, man. The really bad ones run long.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, do you have a favorite kill in this documentary?
Right. Yes, I do. I mean, I can't believe you guys went so long without addressing me. You know, I'm only the guy that wanted to do this movie in the first place. So, look, all right. My favorite death sequence was right in the beginning when they take that thermal detonator from Star Wars and they throw it at the little guy and he jumps on top of it. I'll give him props for saving the girl, but then he blew up to smithereens and like all these little parts and there's bits flying everywhere. Like, you know, like he took a freaking meat bomb and stuffed it with an M80 and lit it and it just shot like meat everywhere. I think that's pretty much how they shot it. Although this is a documentary, so it really was a leprechaun that fell on the thermal detonator. But yeah, that was my favorite death scene was actually the first leprechaun death. I kind of wish that he would have done it and then the movie would be over. Because, you know, leprechauns are tough, but, you know, you sever its head, cut him up, blow him up, he ain't coming back. I don't care what that movie says. They're not coming back.
I'm on board with you there. Like, they should have, because they do. Like, in 10 minutes, they blow him up to nothing. I would have been fine if the leprechaun was then done and we just continued the movie with this mad scientist story. I could be on board with that.
that should have been the movie. No.
Right? Star ratings. Do you want to take the lead on this? I know Jerry already said 5 stars. He's a big fan of this cautionary documentary.
Yes, I am. I'm going to spread the word everywhere. 5 stars for Leprechaun 4, the documentary.
Me, personally, the movie was definitely high camp. The story was definitely something that needed something more. I walked away from this movie wanting something different than what I got. Mm-hmm. But with what I got, the amount of laughter and just the plain straight camp, I'm going to give it like 2.5 stars.
Oh, okay. That's not bad. That's not bad for a Leprechaun movie. I'm going to shoot a little bit lower. I got to go 1.5. There are some, and the 1.5 are for the scenes that I do enjoy. There are a few parts like the skeleton bit and the like negotiation, and some of the other stuff with the scientist. I like that stuff. It cracked me up. It was amusing, but oh man, everything else was rough. Everything else was just not that entertaining. And it's like, it's on funny, and it's not necessarily them trying to be funny and failing. It feels like them like knowing they're supposed to be funny, but they can't really think of anything. So whatever, they're just gonna kind of crap some stuff out, like not really trying. That's what it felt like, and that's like, dude, in a way that feels worse. So yeah, basically 1.5 star because there was some entertainment here. There's some okay stuff, but that's it. Only 1.5 because this is a Leprechaun movie, and the Leprechaun aspect altogether was my least favorite part of the whole thing. So, that's where I sit.
Nice. Hey, you know what? I just want to change my rating just a little bit. I'm still giving it 2.5, but I'm giving it 2.5 boom mics that you can see fall into the frame of a movie. I don't know if you caught that, but there was 2 scenes where you can see the boom mic come down, and then the sound guy goes, "Oh crap!" and pulls it out of the scene.
No, I didn't notice that. Man,
it's in like the first 5 minutes of the movie. They establish the leprechaun walking in, and it's this big wide shot, and you can see the freaking boom mic hanging in there to pick up Warwick Davis's lines.
That's hilarious. It's got all the hallmarks of just a terrible, cheap movie, and they didn't care. They didn't care. The sets were so bad. That cave looked so bad. Well, from one space station to another. Our next movie we will be discussing hopefully not quite as at length as we discussed Leprechaun. I don't know how long the edit's going to end up being, but we went on about that way longer than I thought. Jason X from 2001. In the year 2455, Old Earth is now a contaminated planet abandoned for centuries. A brown world of violent storms, toxic land masses, and poisonous seas. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true, but we only get to see a little bit of that. Yet humans have returned to the deadly place that they once fled, not to live. I kind of feel like this is already like, dude, this overview, this synopsis is already putting more lore into it than the movie itself put into it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I have a feeling the script wasn't written this well. But to research the ancient, rusting artifacts of the long-gone civilizations. But it's not the harmful environment that could prove fatal to the intrepid young explorers who have just landed on Old Earth. For them, it's Friday the 13th. And Jason lives. Who wrote this overview, man? They were feeling it. They were feeling it that day.
I think it was whoever wrote the first script.
Right?
None of that is established in the beginning of the movie.
Dude, no, I mean, they hint, you kind of get it, but yeah, it's not established at the beginning of the movie, and they don't really go into that kind of detail about it. Screenplay by Todd Farmer. Directed by James Isaac. Starring, this is one of the Kane Hodder Jason Voorhees movies. This is the fourth and final time he played Jason on the screen, although he did do motion capture for that Friday the 13th game that came out a while back. And as we touched on in the GCU Friday the 13th special, it'll probably be a good many years before we get another Friday the 13th movie because the rights are all tied up in a lawsuit. This also has Lexa Doige, Chuck Campbell, Lisa Ryder, David Cronenberg. What?
Yeah. You didn't recognize him?
No.
He's in like the first 30 seconds of the movie.
Oh, God. Cronenberg pops up at the weirdest stuff. It's so amazing because you see Cronenberg and he pops up in a lot of stuff, and it's either like weird indie movies or bad horror movies, and it's like
Nightbreed.
Okay, yeah. I did not realize that was him. Amazing. Well, whatever. Let's get on with it. I'm sure there's other people too, and other people that you probably know.
We'll call them other Jason fodder.
Kane Hodder and Jason Fodder. Get it? Okay.
It's a pun.
Okay, so quick. I'm going to do my own little rundown of this super quick. This also kicks you right into it. Jason is being held in this very minimalistic looking, dark setting. He's chained up by some military types. Well, I guess by a scientist, but like guarded by military types. Military types want to take him. Scientist lady's like, no, that's a bad idea because he's Jason. He's going to escape and kill everybody like he always does. And then they're like, we're the military. And then he escapes and kills everybody like he always does. And then final girl, scientist, battles him into a cryo chamber. Jason's got some, he's got some stabbing force. If he can stab through the wall of a cryo chamber pod, but he stabs her. So cryo chamber gas escapes and they're both cryogenically frozen until the year 2455. A whole bunch of lore that's not really talked about, but this overviewer, man, he knows all about it. And so space people come and find them and take them into their spaceship. And now we have Friday the 13th in space. And that's how it proceeds. So, Matt, had you ever seen this before, and what are your initial impressions?
Yes, I had seen this before. It was part of a whole. My friends and I got into a Friday the 13th. Hey, let's watch all the Friday the 13th movies because the new Jason X is coming out, and then we'll go to the theater and see it.
Oh, nice.
And then we went to the theater and we saw it, and we were horribly, horribly disappointed.
Right?
Because at the same time we're watching it, I look over my buddy and I go, "Hey, is this Andromeda?"
Right? Oh my God, dude.
Because two of the actresses are from Andromeda. I'm pretty sure that some of the special effects was from Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda.
Dude, maybe like producers also had a hand on that show, and it's just like, when you guys aren't, can we borrow some of the sets and maybe some of your actors? We need some props for this Jason movie. Can we just use some of your sci-fi show props? And by props, I mean actors. Send them over. Now, I had seen so much of this that I thought I've never actually watched this all before. Like, I've never sat down and watched this whole thing. I was surprised myself, but I'm watching it. I'm like, especially the opening, I'm like, I don't think I've seen this. But I've seen the kills. I've seen clips of it in so many things. Like, I had seen so many chunks of this that I had thought I had actually watched the movie. I mean, the story is exactly, I kind of knew exactly what the story was. So, like, that's not surprising because it's a Jason movie. But, yeah, no, I was a little surprised that I hadn't seen it before. This is my first time actually properly watching this movie. And yeah, it's not great. It's not great. Dude, again, it starts off, and like I mentioned specifically, the very dark, minimal sets that they're holding Jason in. It starts, and I'm like, dude, this is a bad sign. It looked like a low budget, made for Sci-Fi Channel movie or something, but super low budget. I get working with what you got, but like, it just looked really bad. And I'm like, it's just big open warehouse. Like, they're not even gonna dress up the set. They're just gonna make it dark. That's wow. But then they get into space, and the CGI spaceships look marginally. They looked awful until I watched this before I watched Leprechaun 4. They looked awful until I watched Leprechaun 4, and I'm like, oh no, that CG's awful. and given, Leprechaun 4 was 96, there was quite a jump in CG available by the time even 2001 rolled around. But the sets do look better, but it looks like an Andromeda. It's all super brightly lit. It's not, for the most part, I mean, there's some dark scenes, some dark sets, but it's not lit like a horror movie. It's lit like a sci-fi television show. I found that off-putting.
Honestly, I think I watched it in the right order because I watched Leprechaun 4 first. So when I seen how bad the CGI was in that, and then I saw Jason X, I'm like, oh, this is so much better. This is easier on the eyes.
Dude, I kind of easier on the eyes. Oh, it's something that we didn't get into on the Leprechaun stuff. So you had bought Leprechaun. You bought it. You purchased that. I seen it. You purchased. I'm sorry, sir. You had to pay for Leprechaun. It was pretty cheap, I see. But you bought Leprechaun on Amazon and allowed me to watch your digital copy. I don't know if that's proper or not, but you did. Did Amazon not have widescreen? As far as I could tell, the only version they had was like this pan and scan version of Leprechaun, and I'm like,
I think it was shot in 4:3 because I didn't see anything listing it as anamorphic or.
Yeah, I tried to look it up too. There's not a lot of information. Maybe it's one of those things where even if it was or wasn't, like they're just like, it doesn't matter. Here, Amazon.
It's going right to VHS, so we're just shooting it for VHS.
Amazon's like, what do we get? Leprechaun movies? We can stream Leprechaun movies. You got a DVD copy? Just rip it, because that's what it looks like. It looks like a DVD rip. This anyway, the version of Jason X I watched was much better, but you're right. I should have watched it in that order because Leprechaun sets the bar so low that I think then going to Jason X is like, oh, refreshing. Okay, this is all right.
Which actually made me improve my score for Jason. That's why Jason X gets a better score.
Now, listener, we're going to be talking about a lot of Friday the 13th this season because there's 2 more Friday the 13th dates coming up by the end of the season 4. We will have covered 10 of the 11 Friday the 13th movies this season. So I'm sure I'll say this again, but this movie kind of comes down to my general beef about Friday the 13th movies. It's like, dude, make a good horror movie. Like, why does it have to be a cheesy Jason movie? And this movie is really strange because it's not like they don't have the blueprints. Same with Leprechaun, but Leprechaun, I feel like they weren't even trying. They weren't trying for a horror movie. But like this, you have the blueprint. Look at Alien. Any of the Alien movies, even the bad ones, just look at them. You have the blueprints for how to do a stalking slasher style monster movie in space. You have the blueprint. And I guess this kind of follows it a little bit, but I don't know. I guess it's true to what it's supposed to be. It's Jason in space. So all the characters might as well be camp counselors. They're all ditzy, supposed to be young. Most of them are students, but ditzy students who are more interested in sex despite the fact that they're like supposed to be space scientists, basically.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm torn because like some of the stuff that makes it bad also is appropriate for the series because the series as a whole is not great.
Right. Yeah. It is a campy series.
Yeah.
Quite
literally.
Pun intended.
That said, we don't get to see much of the world, and the characters that we interact with here are pretty shallow. They're what you would expect for the most part in a Friday the 13th movie. But I feel like this does a lot better world building, or would it be universe building in space? Anyway, than Leprechaun, because the captain, the lead scientist or whatever, the captain of the ship, he's kind of shady. He has monetary motivation for once they figure out Jason's not dead, he's alive and he's killing people. He doesn't want them to kill them because he had a video phone chat with a guy, and basically he's going to sell Jason and this woman that they picked up because they were cryogenically frozen. They were able to revive the woman. They thought Jason was dead, and he wants to sell them off to this guy or sell them and make a whole bunch of money. So basically he's a dirtbag who is going to risk their lives, and not to mention basically human slavery with that by selling this woman off, for money. But just that like phone conversation that he has with this guy, it did well at implying like there's like this whole like economic system set up for basically space scavengers to go and find like old artifacts, including people that are alive. And then it also talks about, because the guy's like, well, you're not really going to get much for this woman because, yeah, she's like over 400 years old, but 100 years ago they started waking up cryogenically frozen people. And so there's all kinds of people that are walking around that are like hundreds of years old at this point. It's not a big deal. Just that I felt like kind of was an interesting bit of, I guess, lore.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Leprechaun, I guess there's a little bit of lore with this like space royalty, but
And it's interesting that they chose that particular way to introduce the quote Voorhees character, because I mean it's like all exposition that here's this Voorhees character or this Voorhees body that you found. Is that Jason Voorhees? It's like it's been 400 years since he was cryogenically frozen at the beginning of the movie, and he recognizes the name right off the bat.
No, I think that's funny, but you're right. It is totally, it's exposition. That whole thing. They're stumbling into what I felt was interesting world building was just their way of like explaining to characters who shouldn't know who Jason is.
Yeah. As far as the effects though, I did like how they did the nanites to show the future technology.
Oh yeah.
They had, I thought that was really good. They managed to capture the whole, circuitry looking thing as they like covered up the one body of the woman they found. I thought that was really neat. And they seemed to, story-wise, I mean, they had a great concept going for how to bring back Jason in the future.
No, I think you're right. And I think if you throw out the characters and the dialogue and just look at the story beats and kind of the ideas behind it, like it's totally solid. It's a, I don't know if I'd say smart, but it's a fairly smart way to throw Jason 400 years into the future in space to get him there. I feel like the android lady and her maker / boyfriend was kind of an interesting thing just because they had some type of hook to work with.
They, out of all the characters, they seem to flesh those two out.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, I'd say like the main three characters, Lexa Doing or whatever her last name is. And then those two characters and then the professor, they seemed like those were the ones that they were going to flesh out. And then everyone else was just like secondary characters. On the other hand, though, they did a great job compared to Leprechaun 4 in the fact that they had more characters. They were able to at least get more of a scope,
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a crowded scene, there was more than 6 people in the room.
Way higher kill count on this one when we get to it.
How many people were on that space station?
Dude, that's the one thing. Like, I have the actual like characters that we know of died, but then if you throw in the fact that they accidentally that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. They accidentally plow through part of the space station that was kind of their last ditch effort, and then they plow into this through part of it, and the entire space station explodes.
I think one of my favorite lines in the movie is, so the one guy in the back looks at the screen and goes, well, we overshot it, but we could at least just turn around. And then as soon as he said turn around, the whole freaking space station just blows up.
Yeah, that might have been my favorite moment of the whole movie. That was my, Leprechaun 4 skeleton moment, because it's 100% played for laughs, and I seen it coming. I was like, oh, and they actually kind of nailed the timing. I thought that was a pretty good moment. It was funny, and that's where, because for the most part, it's kind of both the downside to slasher movies, but also kind of what makes them not horribly depressing, is that you don't really care for almost any of these characters. Towards the end, it does kind of get you on board with some of the characters, I think. So that goes, like, it gets you on board with basically, spoilers, the final group. The final girl, I think she's okay. There's not much to her other than she's smart. I guess she's tough. Like, she knows Jason, and that's her thing from the very first scene of the movie. She knows Jason. Everybody's going to underestimate him.
If I was to compare her to another character from another franchise, I would say she's like the Professor Loomis character from Halloween, in the fact that, she took care of... Yeah. She basically was in charge of Jason while he was incarcerated in the Crystal Lake, what do they call it? The Crystal Lake Penitentiary or something like that. Because...
Yeah, like Crystal Lake Research Facility or something ridiculous. Yep.
They had to tie Crystal Lake into it.
The android and her maker guy, they were all right, I thought. It's like, okay, yeah, I kind of want them to survive. And Sergeant Broski, who is this movie's black guy. Actually, he's not I don't believe he's the only black guy in this movie. There was a couple black guys, but he's the one that, like, kind of makes it towards the end. Kind of. He follows in the tradition of Friday the 13th Part 3, I think it was, where he's the last to die, basically.
And he's kind of the hero of the whole movie.
He is. He is the hero. He saves them. But before that, like, I don't know why. I guess it's just like he's just a tough, honorable soldier type guy. But you get on board with him. I liked him. I thought he was pretty good.
When I saw him, I'm like, oh, it's that guy. He's that guy that shows up in a lot of movies. I'm like, man, what's his name? And I always remember him as the guy who gets kicked into the hole in 300.
Sergeant Brodsky is his name. The website I was looking at, something to do with the Dead Meat YouTube channel. They called him Broski, which is kind of funny. But Peter Mensa is the guy you're talking about. The characters that it fleshes out a little bit more than a lot of the obvious ones that are going to get picked off does well enough to where by the end you're like, yeah, they could survive. They're fine. But I'm also not going to be heartbroken if they don't. And that's, like I was saying, kind of that's what makes a slasher movie not a horribly depressing thing, because if you really felt the weight of people being murdered for over and over for the whole movie, slasher movies wouldn't be as fun as they are.
Can you imagine, like, Martin Scorsese directing a slasher flick? How many characters you would have, like, half an hour or an hour build up their background before they die?
Right? I think about that. I've been thinking, because there's a lot, in a slasher movie, a boring kill is just like somebody gets a knife to the gut or something. They just get a stabbing and then they're done. It's like, that was boring. But then think about Saving Private Ryan in that horrible scene where the one little mousy guy is fighting off the guy towards the end and he gets the slow, like, stab into the chest. Dude, that scene can mess you up. And it's like, imagine if every kill in a slasher movie had that kind of weight to it.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't be fun. They wouldn't be fun at all.
No, they wouldn't.
But I think you're right about the 30 minutes of character buildup. They'd also then have to be like 18 hours long. Which reminds me, I read somewhere that of the Friday the 13th movies, this has, like, the kills come more frequently in this than I think any of the other ones.
I know it had a lot more what were supposed to be jump scares. Like the one scene when the two teenagers just finish having sex and then the door opens up and Jason's, like, right there.
Uh-huh.
That was like, oh, hey, And then when he comes crashing through the glass in the laboratory,
Yep.
it was like, yeah, those were the two that I wasn't really expecting it.
Well, I got
like
you.
those-
That's some of the jump scares.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's kind of the things that really stick out to me. The android character is interesting. I wish they actually could have like explored her more in less cheesy ways, but you know, whatever, that's okay. When he gives her the upgrade and she actually like defeats Jason, why? Why did she defeat because she can do karate kicks? Like, why is it that? Why were her guns suddenly so much better than the entire military squad that couldn't defeat him? But you give a robot powerful handguns and she can blow them away, because all her little super cheesy like leather outfit and jumping around didn't really do anything. It was the fact that when she shot him, chunks of his body blew off. Why were the military guys not using those guns?
maybe as part of the upgrade, they upgraded the ammunition.
I guess.
Yeah, it was a bit hokey, and you can tell that this is a post Matrix movie.
Oh yeah,
because they like tried to speed up her fighting style, but not in a good way. You can kind of see that they like tried to trick the camera and increase the frame rate.
Yeah. Well, it basically, every movie that came out after The Matrix that was trying to do Matrix things, it looked like that, because none of them got it right. They all looked cheesy and cheap. And in this, it felt, I don't know, it just felt really weird. But that might be the most sci-fi TV show, Sci-Fi Channel specifically TV show moment of the whole thing. Is just, she got an upgrade, so now she's awesome and can jump around. Although I do buy like him taking the machete to her and it not killing her and that surprising him, I guess. I like that idea to where it's like, no, yeah, she's not human. But
yeah,
then they immediately followed it up with just like super cheese, but whatever. It was fine. I did end up enjoying where she's just like blowing them up to pieces. Probably should have recognized that, hey, that's he's laying on one of those tables that that rebuilds dead things. So maybe let's not leave him there.
Yeah, as I say, an entire spaceship full of scientists and student scientists, and no one thinks, hey, let's move this decapitated dead body away from the medical unit so he doesn't come back to life. No, we'll just leave him there and pray that the machine doesn't suddenly turn on and we get Uber Jason.
Other ideas in this that I really liked that I don't feel like weren't executed very well was the virtual reality thing, where the guys are playing like this virtual reality game. The CGI was very bad, but it was supposed to be a video game, so that kind of makes sense. But I do like that Jason stumbles into this virtual reality game and is trying to kill the people, and when he also, once again, looked very confused when he slashes through a guy and the guy's just like, oh, what's this? What's going on? Like, he doesn't die. But then, of course, he kills them after the game turns off. And I do like how they use that later as a distraction with the fake camp girls.
Yes. And that's what I want. One of the things I wanted to bring up was the distraction VR scenario. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when they're in when they're in the sleeping bags and the way he kills them in the sleeping bags, where he's beating one with the other one, and then just that's not enough. Picks her over his shoulder and starts throwing her up against the tree.
The tree. I love that because, okay, so first off, yes, when they're both in the sleeping bags and he's beating one with the other is hilarious. And then the tree bit is a total throwback to what's kind of considered one of the best kills of the franchise. Is he does that. I can't remember which one it is offhand. But he does that to a character in another Friday the 13th movie where they're in a sleeping bag and he just like picks it up and slams it against the tree. And it's one of the ones that was famously edited down. They couldn't get an R rating. And basically as the series went on, further into the 80s, they started cracking down on violence in these movies, in these horrible slasher movies. So that's one of the ones that kind of got censored, so to speak. And so specifically that kill where they're beating him against a tree that's supposed to go on way longer than it did. Anyway, call back to one of the more like notable kills of the franchise. So I appreciated that. And of course, Jason becomes ridiculously unstoppable. But I feel like as the movie goes, it actually gets better, in my opinion. Like the last third, I think, is pretty decent because it does a good job of it. You've got Jason, who's this unstoppable killer, but then you also have all the other stuff, all the space stuff, the we just kind of blew up this entire space station, and now we're stuck out here in space. Stranded. The ship is it's coming apart, and then basically they do really well at ratcheting up the threat. What's the phrase?
Almost like the anxiety.
Yeah, it builds tension because it's like you got Jason and this issue. How are they going to fix this issue while avoiding Jason? And then, this issue's almost fixed. Nope, it just all went to hell. Now there's a new issue. Like it builds and builds pretty well. All still while, of course, having Jason being the ever-present threat. So much so that even you can't kill him because then he gets rebuilt as Cyber Jason. Super Jason. I think he's often referred to as Uber Jason.
Yeah.
Not having actually seen this till this watch for this episode, I was so worried they were going to super shredder him. I was like, because he gets turned into cyborg Jason, basically, starts coming after him, and immediately they basically blow him out he gets blown out the ship into space. And I'm like, did they just like upgrade him and make him awesome and then kill him immediately? It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 all over again. Super Shredder is the coolest, except he dies instantly. But that's not the case. In fact, he's even more tough now, and he
can survive the vacuum of space.
He can survive the vacuum of space and punch through the hull of a spaceship.
Yeah.
And I'm intentionally avoiding talking about some of the deaths just yet because that leads to one of the best.
With the Great?
The Great. Because as soon as it
was a great death.
Oh. Jesse, watch out. Someone's coming for your pun title, your pun crown.
You gotta have one or two in an episode.
I do like how the movie ends. So, like I said, for me, overall, it was kind of weak, but there are some high points, and I feel like as it gets towards the end, it kind of gets better. Do we want to get into the kill count and all that?
Sure.
Okay. The totals I found were there's like 25 characters that get killed, which is actually a very substantial body count for a slasher movie. Jason himself can be directly attributed to 21 of them. There are caveats to a couple of these. For example, one of the characters blows herself up because she freaks out, locks herself in the only escape ship, and then tries to take off without disconnecting basically the fuel hose and blows herself up. So that's not really Jason's kill. And then the kill immediately, after that is Waylander, who sacrifices himself trying to blow up Jason, which obviously didn't work out too well. That one you can kind of attribute directly to Jason in a way. And then the one we were talking about with the Great, Jason caused a hole, but it's being sucked through this hole into space that killed a character. So anyway.
Physics killed the character.
Right? And then Sergeant Broski, he's pretty much dead, but he died fighting Jason.
Right.
And, really, Jason would be dead again there too, but it's Jason, so he never dies.
Would he be dead?
Maybe not. Maybe there's a couple ways he could get out of this pinch.
Hey, I think that landed in a lake.
Right? It's so funny. Okay, so slight spoiler on my pitch. I do take that angle, but I'm sure you do too. But guess what? Neither you nor I are the first, because there have been comic books that are direct sequels to Jason X that also do that.
Oh, nice.
So that's the obvious thing to do with the end of this movie. And then there's the 2 virtual girls. Do they count? I think they do.
I think so.
They're not actual characters, but they are kills, kind of. I had the same issue when we talked about Freddy versus Jason last season before last, because it starts with a couple of kills, but they're like imaginary dream girls. So I didn't know if those counted or not. But yeah, so anyway, Jason gets like 21 total direct kills. I actually feel like this movie's pretty good about the kills. It starts off a little weak, he kills there's 7 military people that get killed off right away. But once he gets into space, I feel like all the kills are pretty, and not all, but most are pretty inventive in terms of slasher movie kills. Do you have a favorite? Because I know there's one that everybody always everybody has a go-to, and I'm curious if it's that one.
Honestly, it's the sleeping bag stuff. That was my
Fun.
My favorite.
Okay,
that's why I want to count them, because I mean it is hilarious. Just the sheer cartoonishness of it.
Yes. So a lot of people's go-to, and I think the one that is more commonly referred to or mentioned when they talk about crazy Friday the 13th kills, is the frozen face one. Gets brought up quite a bit.
Oh, right.
And I
forgot about that one.
I feel like that's one of the more brutal ones for sure. You get a couple, there's somebody gets their back broken and somebody gets a throat cut. There's a couple not super inventive ones, but whatever. You got 20 something kills. You got to retread some ground here and there. But I'd mentioned the grate one, sucked through the grate into space, and that one amused me because as soon as the grate got sucked up to the hole, to where it's not just a hole in the ship sucking everything out into space, it's a very small hole with a grate over it. And I'm like, oh my God, someone's definitely going into that. And I didn't know how they were going to do it. And they actually, the way they did it, I think is what amused me so much, is because there's one chick and you're like, she's done, because everyone else is pretty much out of the room. And she's the one struggling, getting sucked up, trying to hold on to the ground. Once she finally does let go, or gets pulled up towards the hole, you just kind of get a zoom towards the hole, and then it cuts. You don't actually see her hit the hole or anything like that. It just cuts to a close-up of the hole. You hear the sound, and then there's just a couple little chunks on the grate. I'm just oh my God. I mean, it's probably the easiest way to do that, but also super effective. Super effective.
Yeah.
They didn't need to go ridiculous gore makeup on that one.
Much better use of the cutaway than a lightsaber shillelagh.
Right, exactly. I know, I think on the GCU Friday the 13th Halloween special, or I guess that's not it, Friday the 13th special, Paul had mentioned the corkscrew one, where it's basically there's a big drill, and as soon as I seen the drill, I'm like, somebody's going on that. And somebody does. A dude gets thrown onto it, and then slowly twists down. And I was like, dude, that's super twisted. That, no pun intended. It's super twisted that it's yeah, that's probably what would happen. But the timing of it is comical in a way that it's whoever come up with that's real dark. Real dark.
Because again, it's physics. If you have a weight on a curved item, it's going to follow that curvature.
Yep. Somebody sat there staring at a drill and was just thinking about this, dark. Some of the other ones are kind of weak, but I want to say though, the one that you mentioned, the one kid opens the door and then gets stabbed. He gets stabbed in the gut with a machete, and he then turns around and Jason pulls the machete through him backwards, so he pulls the handle section through the dude. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a little extra nasty. What do you think of the look of Uber, Jason? I'm so torn because in concept it's cool, but really the mask is kind of weak. Like, I like the metal Jason mask is cool, but like I feel like the shape is kind of overdone.
It's a little off.
Yeah.
The way they kind of like split it at the top to make it look less like a hockey mask and more like
it's like a skull, you know?
Yeah.
Star rating. Since I made you go first last time, I'll go this time. I'm going to give Jason X 2.5. I kind of expected it to be lower. I enjoyed this more than I had anticipated, but it's also not great for all the reasons I said. It definitely gets stronger towards the end. This, I feel like they did a few kind of interesting things, and there were enough interesting ideas, even if they weren't executed that well, that I was like, yeah, I mean, it's not a good movie, but you basically made Friday the 13th in space, and it kind of worked. So there you go. I'm on board. 2.5. That's me on board.
Well, I'll see your 2.5 stars, and I'll raise it 3. Only because, like I said, I had seen this right after watching Leprechaun 4, so it was a lot easier on the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a much better thought out story as opposed to Leprechaun 4 and some of the other Friday the 13th movies. It definitely does have a lot of the campiness and cheesiness to a slasher flick. But yeah, I'm gonna say just a little more than middle of the road. Towards the end, it definitely got a lot better as far as the kills, how creative they got with them. Definitely used more of the set than, Jason just throwing a machete through a guy who's running away from him. Poor David Cronenberger.
God, I can't believe that was him. Oh my God. Did Jerry have any thoughts on Jason X? I totally forgot about Jerry.
Oh crap, I forgot about him too.
Nope. I watched the movie, and I gotta say, it was kind of cool with the some of the kills, but there's no leprechauns, there's no gnomes. So yeah, I just ate my popcorn and watched it.
So if there's no leprechauns or gnomes, it doesn't really
Nope.
register.
Now, if he had picked like, Jason Nomeo, I would have watched that.
Is that a thing?
Nomeo X.
Nomeo X. See, that's more of like Nomeo X, I imagine, is like the Malcolm X of gnome movies.
Totally. Him and Martin Nomeo King.
Okay, Jerry. We're just going to stop traveling down this road.
All right.
Okay.
You might want to cut that one out.
It's not bad. It's just like, it could go in a weird way. It could go weird places.
Yeah, it could.
So, gentlemen, the movie studios are looking to, Star Wars it's not doing so hot for Disney. So they're looking to see what else they own or will soon own, because they own everything. And with, the Joker doing so well, being like one of the highest grossing R-rated movies of all time, they feel like, you know what? It's time to step out and do some more R-rated movies for the mass audiences, but in space. But of course they can't create a new character or a new license or new IP. That'd be madness. So they just pick up a couple of long-running old characters that, wow, I'm gonna have to loop the background music on this for a long time. Old characters that they don't think anybody really thinks about anymore. So how would you combine Leprechaun 4 in space with Jason X? Wow, into one space-tastic slasher cinematic universe.
I was just waiting for you to say, what'd you say her name? What'd you say Martha?
What'd you say her name? Where's the trigger? Combine all the Batman. Old chum. Jason in space. I can't do it, but I know that's the way he does it. I need some shark repellent in my Spacesuit? Have they done Sharknado in space yet? They will.
They will.
Okay, well, you're the guest. I'll give you the option. Would you like to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Hit us with it. I'm super excited.
All right. So, what year was Jason X? It was like 2485.
It is 2455.
Okay, 2455. So I'm working on the premise that 2455, the Leprechaun movie and the Jason movie kind of happen in the same, let's say, decade. Everything happens in Jason X. Jason's mask or body falls into the lake. The last thing we see is his mask floating at the bottom of the ocean, or the lake. Meanwhile, across the universe, all that stuff happens with the Leprechaun. I'm working on the premise that the princess from that planet died. So her father finds out, and so he decides that he's going to hire a bunch of merchant marines, colonial marines, whatever they were, to try and find the creature that killed his daughter. That winds up taking him to New Earth. What we find out is that the survivors from Jason X were on their way to New Earth when they happened to come across a bunch of space debris. And one of the things in the space debris was a leprechaun arm.
Who
and
peed
so,
on it? Does somebody pee on it? I hope not.
No. But they use the medical bay nanites to examine the arm, and they discover that, hey, it's got these magical properties, and they bring the leprechaun back. Conveniently, the medical facility is next to a camp on a lake that's called New Crystal Lake. And the leprechaun goes crazy and starts killing everybody in this facility, and comes across these campers who had found this mask. And for some odd reason, the leprechaun puts the mask on, and it becomes Leper Jason.
I was waiting for the name. Leper Jason. Okay, that's fun.
So now there's this Jason Voorhees leprechaun running around Crystal Lake, killing campers because for some odd reason the magical nanites and the curse of Jason have now combined into one uber monster. And the only person that can save them is the woman from Jason X that survived, teaming up with the king from that other planet.
The king? The king from the planet that the space princess is from?
Yep.
Okay, that's fun. I like that. Are they going to fall in love?
Sure, why not?
you gotta. I'm sorry, I'm injecting stuff into your cinematic universe pitch, but you gotta have, dude. You can't have one of these movies without having some type of love interest situation.
Exactly. So yeah, that's pretty much my pitch. We could probably run with like 2 or 3 Leper Jasons, Jastricons.
You could really play up the comedy aspect of like, final girl is dating the king, and the princess is just a total snob about it and hates her, and but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and somehow we have to inject instead of a lightsaber shillelagh, it's a lightsaber machete.
Oh my god! Why didn't they do that in Jason X? That's actually I kind of like that idea. All right, dude, I like that. Leper Jason, Vorhicon. That's when all the like mechanical stuff like activates. He transforms from Leper Jason into Vorhicon. When you add gold into the mix.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my pitch. So the first movie in this cinematic universe is called Leprechaun vs. Jason, in Space, Episode 1, The Farce Awakens. I I really should have stopped after In Space, but I kept going. Okay, so it's going to share a lot of similarities to yours. But I'm going to try to like embrace the stuff that sucks about what they've done, like Friday the 13th movies, and kind of traditionally how team-ups with Jason have worked. Okay, so Jason X. We open right at the end of Jason X as Jason plummets to New Earth, fortunately for him, landing in a lake before he got completely burned up. Now, while one hitchhiker of his burned up upon reentry, and that was poor Sergeant Borowski, another hitchhiker did not. You see, because Uber Jason picked up a hitchhiker while flying around in space, battling with Sergeant Borowski, because, Uber Jason's flying around in space without a suit. That hitchhiker came in the form of a space bacteria that's been floating around for roughly 350 years, because Leprechaun 4 took place. I don't know if they even say this in the movie. Maybe they do. But according to Wikipedia, it took place in 2096. So basically, after Leprechaun 4, even though this isn't the case, there's several sequels since then. Chunks of the Leprechaun, maybe it's because of like the way the vacuum of space works, he couldn't really pull himself together, and pieces of him been floating around for 350 years. And so Jason came into contact with a little leprechaun bacteria. We got to stop it. We got to stop trying to combine these things. Backricon. Even though there wasn't too much left of Jason when he landed in the lake, because, re-entering New Earth's atmosphere without a suit is pretty hard on you. There's basically some metal Uber Jason parts and a little bit of original Jason tissue. And the space bacteria. So once again, fortunately for Jason, the space bacteria and Jason's natural unkillableness, his weird magical unkillableness, combined with the familiar environment of a old funky swamp, Jason was able to reform. And I wrote some of this out. Allowed him to once again live, because Jason lives. Okay. Anyway. And so what this movie is, so we have Leprechaun versus Jason in space. And in the tradition of Jason Takes Manhattan, 2/3 to 3/4 of the movie will not take place in space, just like Jason Takes Manhattan. Most of that movie took place on a yacht that somehow traveled from a lake to a river. But the 2/3 of the movie that doesn't take place in space will be kind of a traditional Friday the 13th, because it's Jason. It's kind of resurrected, kind of Uber Jason. And since he did burn up a bit, we could do another redesign, which would be fun. And attacking your typical camp counselors on New Camp Crystal Lake, because of course New Earth for some reason has a new Crystal Lake. However, where the Leprechaun versus Jason thing comes in is we're going to also then take the angle of Freddy versus Jason. And even though it is a big chunk of the movie, Freddy's not even like really out and about most of that movie. He's in Jason's head, much like the Leprechaun, who, because he's kind of entangled in Jason's DNA right now, and Jason is unstoppable and unkillable, he's having a hard time like separating or taking over. So he's in Jason's head, kind of controlling him. But of course, Jason is really driven by Mother Pamela, who's also, his whatever mental version of Mother Pamela that normally drives him to kill is also in there. So he's got battling Leprechaun versus Mother Pamela voices in his head for most of the movie. So you get a rather conflicted Jason trying to kill his way through teens around this lake. Eventually, the Leprechaun does manage to regain some control and pushes Jason towards figuring out, like, Jason's not smart, but the Leprechaun's smart, so he figures out how to, like, kind of direct Jason towards the nearest space taxi so they can get back out into space. Because you know what? You know what the Leprechaun's been thinking about for 350 years? His little tiny shrunken bits of gold are still floating out there in space. Somebody's got his gold and it ain't him, and he's unhappy about it. And so that's how we finally end up in space. There will be some type of battle between maybe once he gets out in space, he can figure out how to separate himself. We'll have some type of battle, but that'll essentially set up the space opera in which every movie starts with a scrolling text, something about, in a galaxy far, far away, but in the future. And we have the saga of the Leprechaun trying to get his gold back, and Jason, and yeah, it keeps going.
I got a feeling someone's going to sue somebody.
Somebody's gonna sue somebody. Nah, if Disney doesn't own the rights to everything already, they will eventually. Is New Line Cinema still a thing? They're probably owned by Disney by now. This whole rights issue with Friday the 13th, this is a waste of their time because eventually Disney's just going to buy it all.
I know how the Leprechaun can get out of Jason, same way he did out of Kowalski.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Except Jason's Jason, so it's not going to kill him, and that'll make for a very interesting scene.
Exactly.
Oh, we can really play up the where Jason suddenly has a trouble in his pants, and there's a bulge, and he's battling with it, and Mother Pamela voice is like, "Jason, what are you doing? You're disgusting. You're just like those disgusting teens that let you drown." And then whatever. Leprechaun comes out. Leprechaun comes out. Jason keeps chopping it down. Oh God, this is getting real dark. Chopping it down with the machete, but it's the Leprechaun, so he keeps just regrowing, and that'll go on for a little bit till finally he's like completely out. I'm sure we could throw some type of I don't know, what's hip. Our Viagra joke's still hip. We'll throw a bunch of those in.
Why not?
That's always hip. Viagra ain't going nowhere.
The Insight commercials.
Yes.
One of the campers looks like the guy from the Insight commercials.
Yes, that's right.
This is Dan.
Oh, man. Obviously, we have the same setup. It's just you can kind of go different ways with it, but I played with a couple of different ideas, and ultimately I was like, dude, when I watched Freddy vs. Jason the first time back in the theater, I was so disappointed, and part of it was so is Freddy just going to be in Jason's head this whole movie? What is the deal? So I had to I had to go with that. A combination of why isn't Jason actually in Manhattan most of this movie, and why isn't Freddy actually around most of this movie? Does Jerry have a pitch? Keep forgetting.
Hey guys, did you forget about me? I got a short pitch for you.
Yeah, Jerry, let's hear your pitch, man.
All right, so here's how it goes. So the Leprechaun's dead from the end of the fourth movie, and Jason's pretty much dead from presumed dead. Now here's what's happened. So on New Earth, there's a bunch of gnomes everywhere that are kind of like a police force, and much like your pitch, the bacteria of this leprechaun, which is really just a magical pixie dust, is floating around in space, and that rescue ship winds up flying through the pixie dust, and it gets stuck to the hull. And so when it lands, it has to go through decontamination, and the gnomes there are kind of scrubbing around going, hey, this looks like pixie dust from our leprechaun wars. And so next thing you know, he gets infected, and then he becomes a leprechaun, which creates this great big war. And so the gnomes have to enlist some help from local heroes, and they just happen to come across this body floating in the water, and it comes alive, and we realize he's an unstoppable killing machine. So they enlist this guy named Jason to help fight the leprechauns. The only problem, though, is because he's an unstoppable killing machine, he pretty much kills everybody in the entire movie, including those darn tootin' great-looking gnomes. The end. Roll credits.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. First off, I like the idea of Jason's the hero, and it also kind of started off as some like fantasy fulfillment type thing. Well, hey, Matt and Jerry, thanks to both of you for joining us this episode.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, thanks. No problem. Yeah.
Hey, Jerry.
Yeah.
Where can people? You got anything you want to promote? Where can people find you?
Oh, well, let's see. I'm always popping around. I been kind of editing and trying to get my war journal into a podcast or something that I can put out there on the interwebs, so that people can know about the realities of leprechauns and how evil they really are, and watch movies like Leprechauns 1, Leprechauns 2, Leprechauns 3, whatever comes after.
He went to space before he went to the hood, and he went to the hood twice. There's Leprechaun in the Hood, and then Leprechaun Back to the Hood. Those are after Leprechaun 4 in space.
See, I told you, he gets around, he's evil.
Yes.
So you could probably also hear me over at Matty D's podcast, the 60s Reboot. And then I'm doing commercials and stuff for other podcasts. I did a great pod edit commercial for.
You did do a great pod edit commercial. I love that commercial.
Let's see. That's about all I got. If you want to follow my rantings and ramblings, just go out to a forest and put your ear up against a tree, and you might actually hear me talking. If you want to email me, you could always email Matty D at his podcast, and he'll get the word to me. His email is, I'll let Matty D tell you.
Yeah, my email is 60sreboot at gmail.com. Is there anything else you want to add, Jerry?
No. I'm pretty much plumb buckered out because I've been talking this entire time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jerry. Hey, Matt, what about you? So they can get a hold of you at that email address. Where can they hear more of your stuff?
Well, you can hear my two podcasts, Comics with My Kids and the 60s Reboot podcast over on the EMC Podcast Network, which is the emcpod.net / or backslash. I can't remember which one it is. That slashy looking thing on your keyboard. 60s Reboot. You can also find my ramblings and my jokes on my Twitter site, which is at 60s Reboot. And let's see, you can find my podcast on Stitcher, Castbox, all the podcast catchers. And then, like I said, my next guest on the next 60s Reboot is actually Jasper.
And everybody, you guys should know by now, but hey, I've been Randall Sylvie, and you can find me on Twitter at Randall Sylvie. Check out randallsylvie.com for basically a rundown of everything I'm involved in at any given moment. And that commercial that Jerry mentioned earlier, Pod Edit, that's for a website in which you can hire me to do basically whatever kind of podcast production you need or whatever you need assistance with on podcasting. I can do that. Go to Pod Edit. It's podedit.com. And you can find more Grawlix Cinematic Universe as well as our sister, brother, mother, uncle show. It's very incestuous. Grawlix Podcast at grawlixpodcast.com, GRAWLIX podcast.com. And we're all over the social medias. You guys are tired of hearing me talk about stuff now, so I'll just leave it at that. Next episode, I actually don't know what's coming up yet next episode, so it'll be a big fat surprise. I can't say that. Next episode is a big fat surprise. I don't know yet. We don't have it set up yet, but the episode after that, we'll be talking more slasher movies because we'll be doing Friday the 13th parts 4 through 6 for the December 13th week, the week of December 13th. So, yeah. Till then, everybody. Oh, it's November. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Think about you could be in space with the Leprechaun, but you're not. Be thankful. You could have watched these movies. You could have been a guest on this show and then have to buy Leprechaun 4 in space, but you didn't. Be thankful.
For $2.99, Leprechaun 4 could be yours.
Dude, I mean, that's pretty cheap to own. Like, that's not a rental. You own it, right?
Yeah, I own it.
$2.99 is pretty cheap. that's pretty cheap for a purchase. So that should tell you something. Should tell you something about Leprechaun.
But no, Mr. Kowalski's got to go over there and pull out Mr. Snake and take a leak on them. I mean, you know what? That whole scene is what sparked the Leprechaun War. Believe it or not.
Is it?
Yes, there was one time I was out. I'm trying to keep it simple here. But I was out defending a home in one of my favorite towns of Lincoln, Nebraska, and these two drunk guys come up. And now one of the things us gnomes have to be is we have to be completely still whenever there's people around, because people aren't supposed to know that we exist. And this drunk idiot, who was some kind of drunk Irishman, came by and started taking a leak, and he hit me right on my gnome hat. So of course that caused me to twitch and get angry, and I ended up fighting the guy. And little did I know that he was actually a leprechaun. But that's another story entirely.
It's like the reverse of this.
This movie hits home for me just a little bit.
Jerry, if people aren't supposed to know gnomes are alive, appearing on podcasts is probably not the best idea.
Well, it's okay because this is an audio medium.
Oh, they can't see you move, so they're not going to actually believe that you're a gnome.
Exactly. I can be like that Travelocity guy. Justin the gnome. Yeah.
Oh, is that Justin? Justin the gnome?
Yeah,
you know
Justin. Him? He's my second cousin.
Oh, okay.
On my mother's side. He's got her beard, by the way.